We're here in Los Angeles getting ready for UFC on Fox at the Staples Center with Soares, the manager of both Anderson Silva. Lyoto Machido's fighting on Saturday. Ed, do you get nervous?
Oh, of course. I always get nervous. Yeah, of course I get nervous.
You always smiles and a very calm guy. On Twitter the other day, we saw you get into it a little bit with some of the fans. Is that common for you?
Once in a while, I'll wake up and I pick up my Twitter and I'm just in one of those moods, and you know, the fans start saying some things, and I just, you know, it's part of the game. Yeah, you know, I'm human. I have emotions, and when sometimes people say things, it just bothers me.
And this is also about Weidman and the match.
Yeah, it's not even so much about Weidman. Like, it has really nothing to do with Weidman. I think Weidman's a great guy. I think he's a talented fighter. I think he's a great representative of the sport. But right now, I just don't see why that fight would make sense. Granted, you know, a lot of people say he's the #1 contender, and he could be. But from a fight option right now, it just doesn't seem like a fight that makes sense. I mean, you know, not enough people know of Chris Weidman, and he did have a win against Mark Munoz. He had an impressive win against Mark Munoz, and he beat Damian Maia. But I mean, you know, that's just my opinion. I don't think it's going to be a big fight. I think he maybe needs a couple more fights. But once again, that's just my opinion, man. If the UFC decided that that's his next opponent, then that's his next opponent. You know what I mean? We don't have too much really say-so on who the next opponent is. You know, Dana and the UFC decides who it is, and Anderson has never turned away an opponent, and never will. You know what I mean? He's here to fight, and whoever the best fight will be. You know, and I'd like to see Chris Weidman be a little bit well known. Once again, taking nothing away from him. Just because he's that well known doesn't mean he's not a tough fighter. Right. But it's kind of like a double, you know, a double negative. It's a no-win situation for us, other than just beating another opponent. If Anderson Silva beats Chris Weidman right now, he's just beating a Chris Weidman. What are they going to say? Oh, well, he wasn't ready for that yet. He wasn't this. So there's no real upside. It's almost an obligation. And I think anytime any champion is in a position where the obligation is on him, it's just you know, I'd like to see another fight that's going to be a bigger fight. You know.
As a fan of the sport and watching, you know, the big names, Nick Diaz has been verbal lately about fighting Anderson Silva. As a fan of the sport, would you rather see that fight?
I actually would. I think Nick Diaz always shows that regardless of his actions outside the octagon, one thing you can count on Nick Diaz is when he steps in the octagon, he's there to fight. And he's not a pushover regardless who you fight. He's not a pushover, and he's a tough fight. I think the fans, that would probably be, if you're looking at it strictly from a promotional standpoint, I think that potentially could be a bigger fight. But once again, man, it's what the UFC wants to do. So, but I definitely think that's an option. You know what I mean?
And so do I. I think that would be a great matchup. Now, Nick Diaz fighting at 170 usually, coming up to 185. Were you surprised?
Yeah, but I don't think same thing. If you know, the fight with George St. Pierre, I think the right thing to do would be make it at a catchweight.
So not making a title fight out of it, making a catchweight.
Make it a catchweight. You know, I think that's a super fight. It's not a title fight. I think you know, if George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva were to fight at like something like a 178, and it kind of, there's no official title, but it could be maybe the pound for pound title or something. You know.
And how would that be for Anderson, making 178? Would that be doable?
Man, I think it's always doable. I mean, Anderson never seems to amaze me. I don't think there's anything Anderson can't do if he puts his mind to it in this fight world.
Now, Lyoto Machida, Saturday night here at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Dana was very verbal about the 205 fights that night. Put on a good show, you might be in a title contender again.
He didn't say might be. He said whoever won the fight most impressively would be the next title shot. Whoever won the fight, out of the two fights, whoever won most impressively would be next in line. That's what he told me, at least.
And Lyoto wins on Saturday night. First of all, do you think that John Jones will beat Dan Henderson?
I think the odds are kind of I think John Jones definitely has more weapons. I think the difference is Dan Henderson is very experienced. He's fought in many different weight classes, and Dan Henderson has a very heavy overhand right, and that seems to be a punch that once in a while lands on John Jones. So I think that if Dan Henderson lands a clean shot, but that's true in any fight. In this sport, that's the great thing about it. I see John Jones probably being the favorite in this fight, but a fight's a fight, man, and you move left when you should have moved right. Your night can end early, and so I think that's the great thing about this sport. There is no such thing as a sure win.
Who would you rather see Lyoto fighting after saying he beats Bader on Saturday for a title? Would you rather see Lyoto facing Dan Henderson or a rematch with John Jones, or does it really not matter?
It really doesn't matter from a standpoint of looking at it of redeeming losses and stuff. I think I'd like him. I think it really doesn't make a difference, but for him to be able to get another shot at John Jones, I think that would, either one would be great, man. To fight a guy like Dan Henderson would be awesome, and to fight like John Jones again to try to redeem himself would be good too. Because I think Lyoto believes that he's not 100% convinced that he can't beat John Jones. He believes he can.
And looking up until the guillotine choke, it looked like Lyoto was landing a lot of shots. Jones was having difficulties with his range, so I think a lot of the fans would like to see that fight as well. Ed, we know you're busy. You've got a couple of guys here, and good luck on Saturday night.
Thank you, man.
I'll see you back at Black House.
All righty, take care. See you on Monday.
Yes.
Programmet presenteras av betsafe.com.